And just like that, here we are, second round of the NBA playoffs. Every first round series has officially been wrapped up. And, for behind the scenes purposes, we could have had a game seven. Memphis beating Minnesota 114 to 106 last night, wrapping up their series. We officially got our second round of the bracket set. I used to wait to intro and do warm up jumpers, but now with the video form, there's no hiding from it. So our pal Justin Cousart is off officially vacationing in Jamaica. I'm Kevin Rafuse. This is the Driving Dish NBA podcast. Got Carlton Cabey filling in. Follow him on Twitter at Carlton_KB, like the letters K and B. If you're a longtime fan of the podcast, you of course know Carlton did Summer League with us in Orlando a while ago. I miss doing that, man. I say it all the time. But
I
that was
hate that
so
they
fun.
took it out of there, man.
And Vegas is fun. Like we had a great time when we went to Vegas. It's definitely because every team being there, of course, raises the atmosphere a little bit as well. But there was just something about the intimacy about Orlando Summer League and being right there on the court. I mean, you heard coaches drawing up plays. It was so easy to get audio afterwards. And, you had guys showing up. I mean, the first year we went, Kevin Durant was down there. So, definitely missed that for sure. But
Definitely.
Carlton joining us is number one, super appreciated as always, and number two, fitting because of course Carlton is a big Miami fan all around. Marlins University of Miami, Florida Panthers, who I'm going to sneak in a little bit later with the Panthers winning the President's Trophy. But we're going to start with some awards before we get into the second round. Three of them out so far. So start with Defensive Player of the Year. Marcus Smart winning over Mikal Bridges as the runner-up. First guard to win the award. Obviously, we know this is real big man skewed, but first guard to win the award since Gary Payton. And that to me was, the coolest part, like bringing Gary Payton out. I like the way that they've kind of stepped up the presentation this year of the awards, it feels like. But it is pretty crazy that there just hasn't been a guard at all in that award since for over 30 years now.
Yeah, definitely, and it's definitely big guards deserving of it. It's crazy, like you said, it's so skewed to the big man. It was good to see that they finally gave it to him because it's crazy with small ball. We were still giving it to Rudy Gobert and big men. So shout out to Marcus Smart for getting it,
Yeah,
and
and
he's
Boston.
definitely deserving. Annoying, no, Marcus Smart is the prototypical. Oh, you hate him if he's not on your team, and you love him if he is. So it's good to see him get some recognition.
Definitely. And I mean, he's so important to that culture there in Boston as well. Like he's that guy. He's the heart and soul of really of everything. Tatum and Brown are the best players without a doubt, but Marcus Smart is that energy guy. He's that leader guy. And they had the number one defense down the stretch. Really turned it on after January, and we'll talk about that here a little bit more as well. But between him and Rob Williams, Loki had a case too. But
Yeah.
definitely cool to see that drought broken, like you said, with the perimeter. With Rookie of the Year, this one surprised me. Scottie Barnes won Rookie of the Year. He won it over Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley. Now, I'm less surprised with Cade because I think Cade, and full disclosure, I think Cade is still going to be the best prospect from this draft. Like, I think long term, he's the guy I want. But I was surprised, man. I thought Evan Mobley put in the body of work the whole season. The Cavs really overachieved. And I know Scottie Barnes did lead a lot of the advanced categories, so I don't want to downplay that either. But and of course, the Raptors surging in the playoffs, getting all the way up to the fifth seed. But I was surprised. I thought it was going to be Evan Mobley. I really would. This is the only one that's kind of floored me so far.
Yeah, I too would have went with Evan Mobley. Like you said, just the consistency from start to finish, and he did it with two other big men on his team. And in a league that goes away from big men, teams weren't able to get him off the court despite his size. They were able to play, play next to Jared Allen and complimented him well. And I definitely would have given him, like you said, Cade Cunningham, who surprised me. I didn't know much about him going in, and the Houston kid. Though they got all the hype, but I think just from start to finish, Evan Mobley was the best. And you don't want to downplay Scottie Barnes, especially since everybody thought it was a reach for them to take him over Jalen Suggs to begin with. So he definitely balled out, but just the consistency that Evan Mobley, it was just like from game one, you could see his impact on the Cavs. He was a big part of. They lost in the playoff playing game, but he was a big part of that team. If Jared Allen doesn't get hurt, they probably play the Heat in the first round.
Well, and that's kind of what I feel like as well. Like the Cavs, more than anybody, dealt with a ton of injuries, and that's not to say the Raptors didn't deal with issues of their own. And I mean, the Raptors came on strong too. So you can't really, you can't take the winning argument away from Scottie Barnes. Like, I don't think this is some outrageous travesty, but I mean, it feels like Scottie Barnes was more set up to succeed right away. Now, I do agree with your point that it is worth mentioning, and to his credit, he was viewed as more of a project pick. Like he was going to be one of those guys who may take a year or two to develop. And here we are at the end of the season already, winning Rookie of the Year, playing tons of meaningful minutes for Toronto, especially in the playoffs. But yeah, I just thought from game one, Mobley for sure lit it up and kind of deserved that. And then the other debate is, really with the most improved. And so John Morant won this award. And I mean, no doubt about it. Grizzlies number 2, surging all the way up. Darius Garland finishing in second, who I thought was a great candidate who in pretty much any other year would have won this award. I guess it really comes down to the greater question. And this is something that John Morant brought up on his own when, he went over on social media and he dropped the award off at Desmond Bane's house and said, "This is your award. Like, you deserve this." And Desmond Bane is, I think, a person who should be there in his own right. And this is something that Justin and I debated when we were giving out our awards is, should he be in this category? Like, John Morant is a certified star. We have no doubt what he is. He's a franchise guy. The winning was there. Everything that they needed was there. I guess the question was, had he taken his, most improved leap already? And so are we just kind of almost retroactively awarding that? Or, because I mean, I think I have no problem. Like I said on the podcast, I thought he should have won the award. I have no problem with it, but I understand the thinking there. I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you think he was like, quote unquote, overqualified for the award?
Yeah, I think he was a bit overqualified just because, most improved mostly is, who didn't see it coming, like Desmond Bain, Jordan Poole, who are players that balled out where you're just like, whoa, that came out of nowhere. You remember, it used to be when we were growing up, it used to be the high school kid who took a couple years and you could see when he was ready. The Jermaine O'Neals, the Kobe,
Right.
You could see when it was there. Welcome to the NBA moment. So I think, growing up seeing the high school kid, second, third year is okay. Yeah, now he's legit. Now he's ready. I do feel that Ja was a little overqualified just because, maybe not the second seed, and that's probably what got it for him. Nobody probably predicted that, but I don't think anyone is actually surprised that John Morant is balling out at the level that he is this year.
No, and he played at an all-star level last year, like you said. So that element of surprise is completely taken away. And that's traditionally, the way we say DPOY is skewed towards big men. That's really what this is. It's the guys that, came out of nowhere or really took the leap. Like Darius Garland,
Right.
I don't think may have been a surprise to anyone. But to be fair, I don't think people, A, were paying a ton of attention to the Cavs last year. And B, I mean, he wasn't near, like, you saw all the potential, but he hadn't put it all together to this point where he was playing all-star level ball this year. If that's the case, I would have gone Garland. If you take Ja out of the award, I would have been fine with Darius Garland winning it. Jordan Poole's another great candidate. Like you said, I would have liked to see him in the finals for this award. And then the other one as well, with Desmond Bain. Like Desmond Bain, I agree. He should definitely be there because, I mean, look at the past series against the Timberwolves. I mean, he was the most consistent offensive player on the floor, averaging 23 and a half points. Like, he's a guy who really stepped it up. The comparison has been there all the time, but the fact that him and Tyrese Maxey just went back to back in the 20s, it's just incredible values for both of those franchises, and they're going to have good ones for a long time to come. Like Desmond Bain, without a doubt, a key piece of that rotation down there in Memphis. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rafuse. Joining me as always is my usual co-host Justin Cousart. Again, like we said, he's down in Jamaica right now. Carlton Cabey is here. Follow him on Twitter at Carlton_KB. I know you don't have any tweets or anything like that. Justin usually brings the tweets up right now. But it does feel like a good place to sneak some Panthers in real quick, actually, before I do the rest of the intro. Locking up the President's Trophy, first time in franchise history. The Flyers were absolutely terrible this year, so we weren't remotely contending for anything. And so the fact that you guys got Claude Giroux, somebody who has been my favorite player in hockey for the past 12 years, basically, obviously I've loved that he's on a chance now to get a contender. You guys got the Capitals first round. I mean, how are you feeling about it? Because you're on the same side of the bracket as Tampa, too, so you'll potentially run into the back-to-back champs. Obviously, the big Florida rivalry there as well. But, what do you think is big for the Panthers going into the playoffs as they try to make this run?
Oh yeah, no, we had you know how like it just seems like sometimes winning teams winning championships, it's like you have to see that team. We have to see the Lightning. Like it almost felt cheated if like the Panthers somehow won the Stanley Cup without playing the Panthers first. or we're not playing the Lightning first. But man, I'm excited. I haven't had this nervousness with the Panthers in a while, and it's funny. You mentioned all the teams I'm a fan of. My favorite thing is being a fan of the Panthers, and the reason is I just picked up hockey about 5-6 years ago. And with the Panthers, I'm completely ignorant to the rest of the NHL. All I know is Panthers players. So when you're texting me Shot Giroux, we traded him. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I watch him like, yo, this guy is good. I have no idea
I
who
was
nobody
hyped.
else.
I was
have no
so
idea.
excited. He went to you guys. I was like, oh my God, there's actually a chance he's going to get to lift the cup at the end of the year, which kind of shows the state of my Flyers right now, that I'm just actively rooting for our guys to get traded so they can go out and try to contend and win something and get rewarded for all their service. But I mean, yeah, you guys, and the thing is, you guys have been good for a couple seasons now. And a lot, Barkov has been there, Huberto has been there, but I mean, it sure feels like you got the depth, the defense. I mean, if there's a flaw on this team there, something that concerns you the most, what do you think it is?
It's like you mentioned, defense. Aaron Ekblad went down. They say he'll be healthy for. They're hoping he'll be good to go for the playoffs. But we know with injuries in every sport, when you take an extended break, you just can't guarantee it. And then Sergi, baby, you don't know who he's gonna get. We may get the best goaltender we've ever seen, and we may get someone who gives up 8 goals in the, in the first period. Spencer Knight is a good second. I'm excited for his future, but he's 1 year away. We're going to need Bobrovsky to come there. So defense and goaltending consistency is what has me most nervous. And it's funny, like you said, Barkov and Huberdeau. It seems like common sense. You picked so early, they would develop. But man, the Panthers hit on the whole run. I was pissed that we got Barkov too, because I wanted Jones. I wanted the Jones defenseman. To go with Branson, and that's why I'm not a hockey expert.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: if it had been Seth, it wouldn't have been the end of the world. But obviously, yeah, what a great player he's been for the Panthers. It's crazy that hockey, because they just ended. I mean, there's a game tomorrow. There's one last game between Seattle and Winnipeg in the regular season, but largely it's over at this point. It's really weird to be flip flopped. Usually the NBA is always later than hockey. Hockey's over kind of beginning of June. The NBA is pushing July at this point. And here we are in round 2, getting ready for some action. We're going to break that down here in a little bit. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, TuneIn, anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us. Of course, watch the video version on YouTube as well. Going for subscriber 36, I believe. We're building it up, grinding it up. So you'll be the Marcus Smart Defensive Player of the Year now, Marcus Smart or Rasheed Wallace of our subscribers. So tune in there. And now a word from our sponsors. All right. So, you're a Miami guy. I was going to go by seeding and do the whole bracket. But I do think with the Embiid injury, sadly, that we have to start there. Late last night in the middle of, let me just recap this actually, because I feel like we got to start, because I'm going to
You were on a high with the Phillies good draft, weren't you?
Because Philly is we beat the Raptors on Thursday. The Sixers closed out the Raptors. So that Thursday, the Phillies completed a 4-game sweep of the Rockies at home. The Eagles drafted Jordan Davis and traded for A.J. Brown, which was completely out of nowhere. Almost had to do the double take. Couldn't believe that something that good had happened to the Eagles. And the Sixers had closed out the Raptors. Everything was good. It was a convincing win. You hadn't seen any of those the whole series. They held a third and fourth quarter lead. I was getting to the point where I was starting to talk myself into beating Miami in the second round. I wasn't quite there yet, but I was starting to believe it a little bit more with the way everything was playing. And then just like that, literally within 24 hours, the Phillies got combined no hit by the Mets. And then you get the news, the bomb, that Embiid has a broken orbital bone in his face and a mild concussion, out indefinitely. Of course, it happened with 4 minutes left. Pascal Siakam just got him. One of those things. I don't think it was intentionally dirty. I don't think Siakam was trying to do anything weird or suspect there. I don't think he should be suspended or anything like that. It's just unfortunate. And I mean, he was talking about it post game a little bit. Ironically, he's broken his orbital bone before. He wore the mask in a series against your Heat here a couple years ago. It was back in 2018 in the first round. We got you guys then. The reality is, though, I think best case scenario, he's missing a week. And if he's got to get surgery, it's probably the entire series. I think it goes without saying that pretty much takes the steam out of it. Joel Embiid maybe the best player on the floor in the series. But regardless, like I was excited to see him match up against Bam. I'm excited to see, Jimmy Butler, our old friend, go back and forth together. I thought this could have been a good 6-7 game series, like depending on, what type of James Harden showed up. Tobias Harris, if he could continue his improved play from the first round, like Maxey continue development, all these other things, because we know what Miami is. Like Miami, you guys are much deeper than us. The Sixers' star power needed to be firing. The reality is, though, is without Joel Embiid, like they can maybe tread water for a game or two. They're going to need more out of James Harden. They're going to need more out of Maxey. But I mean, you guys are just flat out the better team. And the most impressive thing to me that the Heat did in the first round was the last game of the series when you all closed out the Hawks, not having Jimmy Butler, not having Kyle Lowry, when your other guys, the bench guys, can step up and close that game out against a good team like Atlanta. That has to be impressive. And I do think in a way, which has kind of been the story of Miami being the 1 seed the whole year, that you guys are underrated and people are, you guys are going to cruise to the conference finals now, put it that way. Like I said on Twitter earlier, I think this is a 5-game series. I want to be wrong. I think Embiid is going to gut it out, and I think we see him at some point. But, there's a chance the series is going to be in Miami. There's a very good chance they're down 2-0 before we're even a week from now to even think about getting Joel Embiid back.
Right. Yeah, I was joking with my brother saying I don't expect Embiid to miss more than 2 games, but like you said, in Miami, 2 games is more than enough. I've already made the call down there, told them to put our best strippers at King of Diamonds and Tootsies, and we know where James Harden is gonna be. But it's time for James Harden to step up. Like I understand, and like if at any time, like dude, you're a legit superstar. Like the jokes and everything is funny. He might not be the most pleasing player to watch. Trying to draw fouls. But if there's any time for him to show he deserves his MVP, he deserves the ridiculous Dwayne Wade, James Harden debates. All right, now's the time. Show us. Embiid is out for however long, missing. The team needs you more than ever. You have Maxey, who's going to be an X factor for you guys in our opinion. If there's anything that kills this Miami team, like you said, we have depth, but we are slow. And I just have nightmares of Maxey running circles around anybody that we put in front of him. So he's definitely going to bring the energy. This is on James Harden to make it a 6-7 game series, and that's what I want to see.
Well, so in terms of defensive coverage, because Miami's had success with the zone in the past against the Sixers. And for the Sixers, I think on the other side, the way that they've had success against Miami's defense has been just trying to switch on to Hero. Like Hero's going to win 6th man of the year, but that's the guy that they're going to want to attack. They try to get in single coverage. Obviously, Miami's done a great job of countering that, but I mean, do you think we see the zone at all with Embiid out? Because, I mean, the reality is the Sixers backup center situation, you're going to see Paul Reed. You might see Charles Bassey, who I'd honestly like to see. He's been balling in the G League, MVP of the G League this year. Because the reality is if you're playing DeAndre Jordan or Paul Millsap minutes, like that's just a net negative. They're going to get absolutely killed anytime they're on the floor. So I'm going for upside, but clearly I'm not expecting them to even remotely replicate the Embiid production nor require that type of defensive effort. What do you think this does in terms of the scheme? Like, do we see a lot more just doubling and trying to trap Harden, trying to trap Maxey? What do you think Spo cooks up here?
Yeah, that's what I think he cooks up. He's going to do similar to what he did against Atlanta. I've said this from the beginning from Spo, even when we had the young Dwayne Wade team, so he was a young coach. He doesn't let one man teams beat him. Like if you have one player and everybody else, then he's going to key on that person. So I expect a lot of double teams and attention paid to James Harden, similar to how we did against the Hawks. And it's going to be up to, like you said, everybody else. If I were you guys, I would go small. It looked convincing the 5 games against Atlanta, but Bam has been struggling, and this actually went into the regular season. Like it's been swept under the rug because the team has happened to play well. But if they want to move forward and be a serious contender, Eastern Conference or even Finals, Bam is going to have to show up. And for the longest it was, oh, Bam is there. He's next in line. He's well deserved of the contract. You know me, Kev. You know how I could be against Pat Riley. I don't believe in just giving max people contracts to give max contracts. I didn't think Bam is a max contract player. I think he's a very good player. I understand the max contract, but it's like, all right, it's time to show us. Like, no reason why. Jimmy's great. To play. You mentioned playoff Jimmy is great, but there's no reason why Jimmy Butler should be head and shoulders above Bam and everybody else in the court. Like he needs Bam's help.
It really is remarkable. Just, I mean, the thing with Jimmy is it's like he's always aggressive. You know, he's going to attack, but it's just the way the jumper starts falling come playoff time. And we saw it with just so much more efficient. I think it was up by 16% in against that series against Atlanta. And I mean, like you said, I mean, that was the best defense, team defense that anyone's played on Trae Young. Like that was by far Trae Young's worst playoff series. I mean, you guys had him in prison the whole time. I want to go back to Bam though, because that's interesting. What do you think? Like, what has disappointed you about Bam this season? What do you think he needs to work on to kind of live up to that max contract, in your opinion?
Well, it's just the aggressive. It's just you like to see him be more aggressive. Like how it may be frustrating to see Embiid stand at the 3-point line sometimes, but when Embiid decides that he wants to score or he's going to get his shots up, he gets them up. It's been times where Heat fans. People make fun of Heat fans because Heat fans say, and it sounds ridiculous, like Embiid and Jokic kill them. And, those are the two best centers. They kill everybody. But it's like it's in his head. Like he's gotten obsessed with being like the point guard center to where he doesn't even look at the basket. Like centers have learned to give him 3-4 feet of room, and it's like I don't care if you missed the mid. I don't care if you missed the mid range. Shoot it to make the defense respect you. So it's just his aggression, and like he'll have a couple bad games, and he'll do it. So it's like you said with Jimmy Butler, where it's frustrating, where it's the regular season, he's missing shots and he's playing. It's like he's trying to play bully ball, and then the playoffs, those same shots make it. It's just like, well, what changed? Just like that with Bam. Like he'll have a game where he says it's either was Kevin Garnett. And he'll have games where he looks Kevin Garnett light, where taking the mid range and putting the ball on the ground and driving to the rim, and it's just like, dude, nobody can stop you if you do that. Like
he's got to, and this season now, or this series in particular, he's got to feast. Like he's got to, because at least if he's going to be aggressive, get Paul Reed in foul trouble. Like if it gets to a point where DeAndre Jordan has to play meaningful minutes, you're going to kill us in those minutes, especially off the bench. Like that's been Miami's best weapon all year is the bench. Those bench units have just been absolutely lighting teams up to the point. I mean, I think it was 13-point differential with their starting rating or with their starting lineup at one point over the beginning of the year. Now, again, this is probably good for Miami as well, because in terms of the rest factor, I think that's just the other thing with the playoffs is that, I mean, look at it with Embiid. The Sixers were completely lifeless in game 5. They lose that game at home against Toronto in a closeout situation. You have to play that game 6. And obviously they handled their business. It was a great win up there, but look at what it costs. Sometimes the healthiest teams are the ones that win titles. I think for Miami, like you said, those first 2 games are going to be absolutely critical, because then even at that point, if Embiid comes back, I don't see there's being any situation where the Sixers take 4 out of 5 games from Miami. Like there's not that much of a difference between these two teams. If it had been fully healthy matchup, and I am disappointed because I want to see Embiid versus Bam. Like selfishly, as a big man matchup fan, like that's one of the better ones you can get. Bam is elite defensively, in my opinion. We're going to be disappointed there. I think Harden's aggression in game 6 was encouraging. I've been obviously down on Harden. I've said it on this podcast. Like it's been really disappointing outside of his passing. I mean, he got up and even dunked in that game 6 where it was like, whoa, okay, this is the James Harden we're looking for. He's going to have to score. He has to score more if the Sixers want to even hang a little bit. But I think Miami's really well equipped to defend James Harden. I think, again, give Maxey a bigger share of the load, and I think the Sixers are going to have to if they want to have any chance in this. I think he's going to get his, but if the Heat close down James Harden and successfully can defend him the way they defended Trae, I don't know if it's going to matter.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned the 5th game sitting out Lowry and Jimmy Butler. I think that was Spo saying, okay, if the Heat have any chance of winning the NBA Finals, it's going to be, you mentioned Tyler Hero on the bench. The key to the Heat's success this postseason is Victor Oladipo. I don't think Spo believed in him. So I think that game 5, he sat out Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. He was already injured. He said, okay, Victor, show us. Show me you're this guy who we've seen in Indiana, who we've seen start to develop at the end of Orlando. And he did. So I think he earned himself some minutes. He's going to take the Duncan Robinson minutes, which poor Duncan Robinson. Like Max Strus went 4 of 16 that game 5, and nobody said anything, Kev. If that Heat fans has such a vendetta against Duncan Robinson, I don't get it. Like all he did was
it's the contract. It's crazy. And it's crazy because when he gets hot and gets going, like he's just one of those
He's
run
one of
around,
the
wear
best
you out
shooters in the
perimeter.
league. Like when he gets hot.
Yeah, and shooting is the most premium skill to have in the NBA, in my opinion, especially these days. I agree with you. I don't understand that either. I get some of the. I'm like, I get maybe thinking he's overpaid a little bit, but just actively bad. I don't know about that. I mean,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of people wanting him to trade him. It's like, look, if I'm a contender, I'm looking at Duncan Robinson. I'm lining up for it if somebody wants to move on from that.
Absolutely,
But
because there's not a superstar that he can't play next to. Him next to
right.
Giannis is dangerous. Him next to LeBron is dangerous. Like you name me anybody, and he could play next to him and compliment him well.
Could you imagine Jokic just like hit him with a curl pass in the
Right.
corner and just him splashing off those looks? It'd be absolutely ridiculous. But I like I said, I mean, the long story short though is it kind of Embiid getting hurt takes the life out of the series. I think it's going 5 tops, and I feel like 5 is me giving Embiid coming back for a game and us taking one off that momentum. I do. I think Miami cruises here, and I think that Oladipo thing is important. Like you said, if he can give you guys minutes, that's a true X factor. I mean, he did. He was huge. What do you have? 23 points in the closing
Yeah,
game.
and it was an efficient, and he played defense.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If you get any remote sort of Victor Oladipo the way he looked in Indiana, that is a genuine game changer because Miami's going to need again going whoever comes out of this Boston and Milwaukee series, which I'm about to pivot to here in a second. Miami's going to need all hands on deck because right now, to me, that looks like the series. Whoever comes out of that is going to be the favorite at least to come out of the conference and maybe win the whole thing. Now, obviously, a little bit of steam taken out of that series as well. Khris Middleton confirmed with a grade 2 MCL strain. He's at minimum going to miss this series. If they are able to advance, he could very well miss a conference finals series as well. Obviously, just terrible news for the Bucks as they look to repeat. Clearly, their number 2 offensive option behind Giannis. And more importantly, in the short term against the series, Khris Middleton is like low-key been a Boston killer. Every single game against Boston, even when they've lost, he's had a tremendous amount of success despite that defense, despite them flying around everywhere. Look, I believe in Giannis too much to me to think that this is going to be some rollover series now. I had the Bucks winning in probably 7 if everybody is healthy. With Middleton out, I've got it. I shifted it. I go Boston in 6. Again, I just think the firepower with Tatum and Brown and with how good that defense is playing with Grant Williams, with Rob Williams back in the lineup, with Al Horford looking like it's 2009, it just feels like they're more complete right now. I think Milwaukee is going to need Grayson Allen to continue playing well and their depth guys to step up. Brook Lopez, another one. And they're just going to be Donis to be the best player in the league. Now, I guess that's kind of the point, though, is I do believe in Giannis enough to do that. And I think that's why I have the Bucks even pushing the Boston. If I don't believe in Giannis, this could very well be a 4 or 5 or just like the Sixers Heat, in my opinion. But look, I'm never going to doubt Giannis in any series anymore at this point. I think he's more than earned that respect. But I just, again, with Boston being complete right now, it's hard for me to see Milwaukee without Middleton being able to beat them.
Right. No, I completely agree. And like you said, it's so disappointing. Just as a basketball fan, like I was so excited to watch that series, and still even with no Middleton, but like that's going to be a good series. I laid in Boston at 7, simply because it's fun to make fun of the Nets, and you want to see more out of KD and Kyrie. But the fact of the matter is, the Celtics have just been one of the best teams in basketball since January. Like, their new coach, they had to get adjusted at the beginning. But like, as a Celtics hater, I've quietly kept an eye on them. Seeing them in the 10th seed, and they've just climbed up, and I'm just like, whoa! Like it wasn't talked about, surprisingly enough, because so much focus was on the Nets and what was going on out there in LA. But yeah, it's just like the Celtics are just on fire right now, and like you said, Marcus Smart is the engine that goes, and like he's always been defense. He's always given them energy, but like he's become a reliable scorer for them. Like that jump shot, like I was mad at the Nets that game 1 closing out so hard on Marcus Smart, but he's consistently hit those shots this year for the first time ever.
Well, and more importantly, he's gotten better about just cutting down on the stupid turnovers or the shots early. Like Marcus Smart, that's the encapsulation of it all, right? Like even though he's been shooting better, old Marcus Smart pulls the trigger on that. And if you're the Nets, I live with Marcus Smart taking the jumper. Like, look, he's got the potential to hit it, but I can live with it. Like him having the hesitation there and just the ability to read the play and read the defense and make that pass to Jason Tatum, who clearly had a much better look there with the Nets defensive breakdown, makes the layup, wins the game. Like that's the next evolution of what's made Marcus Smart so much better this year. He's cut down on the nonsense.
I used to laugh at Marcus Smart every time because you remember, Kev, it used to be if he hits his first three, the other team was
going to pull it the whole game.
Right. And he's gotten away from that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And that is what makes them more, because all the other stuff has been there. Like you said, the defense, the intangibles, the hustle, like that's always what made him such an appealing player when he got drafted, going back to college. But the fact that he's able to add efficient shooting and just better decision making with it, it's really the peak scenario there for Boston. Like you said, getting adjusted to Ime Udoka's system. I mean, it's just their depth too. Like Peyton Pritchard was playing great. Grant Williams is playing great. Bringing Daniel Tice back was great. We said deadline wise, like the Harden and Ben Simmons move, of course, was the biggest one, but the Celtics were the other clear winners of the deadline. Like the fact that you swap Josh Richardson and Dennis Schroeder out for Daniel Tice and Derek White, it's done wonders for that lineup. And they've all bought in on their identity. They know what they're playing for, and they are. Like, I think that's the one thing is, like, if I put my homer hat on, like you and I as Heat and Sixers fans, like, we got no love for the Celtics, but they're good. I mean, they could very well win the finals this year, and it wouldn't remotely shock me. Like, I know a lot of people have Golden State higher right this second kind of on the chances to win the championship depth chart, and I get it. And I do think people are underrating you. Like, that's the thing is, if Boston – like this series against Milwaukee is going to be tough no matter what. I would have Boston as a favorite in a series against you guys, but like if Oladipo is going, you guys have the depth too to match and the offensive talent to match as well. Like that's not going to be that to me. If we look that far ahead, is a 7-game series as well.
Definitely. And it's something, as much as I rag on Bam, it's something about the Celtics that he hates. Like that's the one team Bam does show up against, the Celtics. But, like you said, to put my homer hat on, Kev, I want the Bucks. Like they sweep us last year after a shortened off season, and we were tired. Like, the whole bubble fraud thing. Like, I want the revenge on the Bucks so bad.
Because you guys smoked them the first time.
Yeah, and like I feel like we could do that again. It's like I don't think we're gonna see it. Me and you're in agreement, but it's like I am rooting for the Bucks because I want my revenge. Like Giannis saying don't play with your food and the jokes. It's like I've been waiting all year for that rematch, and now we might not get it.
That is kind of the one thing that, I mean, not that Miami needs motivation. I think when you have a coach as good as Spo, you never really need to get up for anything. He's always going to get the best out of his guys. But it does feel like there is a little bit of that bubble fraud trying to beat that mentality, because, I mean, it has. Miami's been slept on. I mean, people talked about Brooklyn, I feel like, winning the title more than Miami. People have talked about my Sixers winning the title more than Miami. And I don't know that I've agreed. Like, I get it with Milwaukee and Boston, the way they're playing right now, but that was it to me. Everybody, like Miami, and I think you guys can hang with anybody. Like, again, probably would be the underdog, in my opinion, in that series, but Miami could win the Eastern Conference, and it shouldn't surprise anyone. And I feel like people need to give you guys a lot more credit that could really happen.
I think the reason why that's like, Kev, you've seen it, and everybody says NFL, every league's a copycat league. So, the Heat have had success with getting D-League guys. And, being biased, I do think Spo's tops Popovich as being the better coach in the NBA. But he's just a Popovich clone, and this Heat team is so boring. We're the Spurs without Tim Duncan. So the Spurs were born with the superstar. Possibly the best power forward we've ever seen play, and they were born. And that's this Heat team minus that superstar. So I get why people sleep on them, just because if it's not playoff, Jimmy Butler doesn't play like this in the regular season. Kyle Lowry just does enough. It's just like it's almost like they were waiting for this moment, and that's just not pleasing to see. Like you got, exciting guys like Caleb Martin and Max Strus, but just the average fan, you're not going to an NBA game or putting them on your TV to see Tyler Hero or Max Strus and Duncan Robinson.
No, well, it's like Martin. I mean, like you said, it's the gems that Pop would always dig out. It's these guys that you never heard of who then just would be key integral parts of making runs. I mean, hell, that was Tyler Hero a few years ago. I mean, Tyler Hero wasn't some big name. I mean, again, he was a first rounder. I don't want to say he was a nobody, but like Tyler Hero wasn't expected to be the guy that he is. Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, like look at all these guys that have played meaningful minutes for the Heat at this point this year and have just got it done. I mean, it's always that, and it's always just been the picking up the solid rotation guys. It feels like their signings have always been smart. Like bringing in PJ Tucker is always something that is smart for a playoff team to do. Like he's clearly had success everywhere he goes. Like those are the glue guys that kind of take you over the top, and that I think every team looks for.
And you see why PJ Tucker's a fan favorite, man. Like he's just such a good guy to root for. Like he's talking to the fans and like showing off his kicks and like he just does everything you want to do. He's crazy accurate from the corner three. I didn't realize he was that good of a 3-point shooter in the corner three. But like you said, he plays defense. He gets the rebounds and I think he's taking a vendetta for the Bucks. He said a couple times like it didn't make it national because of the minor media, but he just would like, "Hey, Peter, you had a good game," and he'd be like, "Yeah, man, the Bucks didn't want me," and it's just like, "Whoa, where did that come from?" So like he feels like he got dumped by his ex-girlfriend.
I mean, yeah, like he came over there in the Bucks and was a big part of them winning the title. Like he was in that rotation. He kind of, he brought that oomph that they needed, and I get it. Like they let him walk. They didn't bring him back in the title defense. They thought they could do it without him. So like, again, whatever fuels these guys at this point. But I understand it. I get getting this. Like, whatever it takes to get yourself up come playoff time. And Miami's in a good place to do it because, like you said, they're going to need that against Milwaukee. Like they're going to need any type of mental edge that they can get, whatever it takes. All right, let's go over West. Again, so the bracket is set on that side as well. I am going to start seed-wise first here, and mention the Suns and mention the Mavericks first, the 1-4 matchup. The Suns closing out the Pelicans. Chris Paul, crazy 14 for 14 game. First time it's been done in history in the NBA. Just another, added to the resume of Chris Paul's Hall of Fame career. And then for Dallas, winning 98-96, felt like a 90s matchup for sure in Utah in game 6, for them being able to close it out. Bogdanovich with a really good.
You can't miss that shot.
I know. I know. And the thing is, you're not even mad with him taking it. Like, it's not a situation where you're like, how does Donovan Mitchell not take that shot? He was wide open. It was there. It's a make or miss league, man. I mean, what else is there to say? And I think Dallas wins that series regardless. Like, I was impressed, honestly, with the fight in Utah in that game 6, because it feels like there are plenty of moments, because we know what type of, and we'll have a whole summer to talk about that, but it's going to be an interesting one for Utah without a doubt. But I mean, look, Dallas has Luka Doncic. It feels like their depth is better than it's been here in recent years. Like, they're going to push Phoenix. I think Phoenix is going to win this series in 6 games, but they're without a doubt going to give them a run. With Devin Booker, it's good to see him back in the lineup, thankfully. This isn't an Embiid or Middleton situation where he's going to miss time. Likewise with Luka when he had the strain earlier in that series as well. But this should be a fun one. I'm excited to see the star power here. DeAndre Ayton is going to be a key, I think, if he's able to score on Kleba, on Dwight Powell, play, better defense on them, kind of close down the paint a little bit. And I mean, I want to see what type they can play on Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Like, Dallas's identity has been defense the whole time. That's how they've been beating teams. And I guess the other question for them is, can they keep up behind Luka? Can the other guys continue to step up? Obviously, that was the Jalen Brunson breakout series. He was absolutely phenomenal. Dinwiddie had his moments as well, especially down the stretch. He had a couple bad games against Utah that you probably want to throw the tape out on, but largely he's been the other big part for them as well. I do think Phoenix kind of got the jitters out of their way early, if that makes sense. Like, the Pelicans were pushing them, but when it came to shove, even without Booker, they got it done. And now here with Dallas, like, Dallas is a really good team. It does feel like they're clicking at the right time, but I think Phoenix has also shot the ball terribly from 3, and it feels like that's going to start to even out here a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, the Mavs, Jalen Brunson, man, have a series and have a season. Like, he's going to get paid. He's made himself a lot of money. I don't know if he's going to be this next year's Bismack Biyombo, where the playoffs makes us so much money and then he goes back to being who he thought he was. But like that Dallas team, Mark Cuban has been trying everything to fit a good team to go around Luka. Like, when I seen they had they eliminate the Jazz. They're like, this is the first series since they won in the 2011 NBA Finals.
Crazy.
One that I'm still not over, but yeah, I had no idea it had been that long. So, well deserved for Luka, and it is gonna be a good series. Like, I was just like you said, we all knew Luka, but it was like who else was gonna step up? Brunson, of course, but you mentioned Dinwiddie, Keebler, who Mavs fans are get frustrated with. He hit clutch shots. It's going to be a tougher series than I originally thought. I still think the Suns get them in 6 just because I just feel like their experience. Like you said, regression to the mean. There's no way they shoot that bad from 3-2 series in a row. I'd be shocked. So I think the 3-point shots is ultimately what puts them forward. But this is going to be a much better series than I probably would have thought a month ago if you would have told me these two teams meet up.
Well, Dallas is just ever since the trade deadline, like they're kind of like Boston in that regard, where you didn't really think that Spencer Dinwiddie, with how bad he was playing in Washington, with swapping him for KP, like you could tell that Luka and KP wasn't working the way that they certainly envisioned when they made the trade initially. But when you see a Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie trade on paper, I think it's a little jarring at first, but in reality, that's been quite the kick they need. And because especially, I mean, they're not playing with Tim Hardaway Jr. either. Like he traditionally has been the number 2 guy behind Luka, really the only other one who's been kind of a bit able, it seems like, to consistently carry the offensive load. And man, I got to give Jason Kidd credit too. Like I've got to own a bigger apology there, because I was ripping that higher. I think a lot of people were down on it. I think hell, Dallas fans were down on it. But I mean, I said on this podcast, like I thought this was one of the worst case scenario hires for Dallas. And instead, it's been quite the opposite. He's been phenomenal. Definitely changed the defensive identity there around. Yeah, Jalen Brunson is going to get paid, man. He's going to get so much money. And to the point where I think it stinks for Dallas, because he probably priced himself out of Dallas this offseason. I mean, obviously you would love to bring him back. Like you want that consistency going. But I mean, teams like New York, teams like Chicago have already started to like put the smoke screens out that they're getting ready to load up. Detroit's another one too, where it's like, hey, they might make him an offer that I don't know that Dallas can keep up with. So but certainly a great series for him, a great breakout playoff so far for him as well. I think Phoenix cruises, though. I still think they're on a mission. We're on a crash course, I think, pending anything drastic for that fully healthy Warriors versus Suns conference finals. And that gets us into the last series, the Warriors versus the Grizzlies, which shout out to the Grizzlies and the Timberwolves. That may have been the most fun first round series. Just love the energy. Love that neither of those teams are afraid of each other, getting in each other's face, talking smack. And that's kind of what we're going to see more of here. Like every time the Warriors and the Grizzlies play, it's chippy as hell. And so I'm excited to see it in that regard. Like they've been on a collision course. Of course, the Iguodala factor in there as well. The Grizzlies always love any chance that they can get to go after him.
I wish they would let that go.
I know. I see. In a way, I got it. At first, I understood it, because that when they had their breakout year, it was like, yo, you could have been a part of this. Like, you could have been our vet and been getting all the credit in the world for this. I do think they're at a point now where it's like, yeah, you're established. Like, you don't need to prove anything to anyone anymore. Go out and beat them. Steph Curry has lit up the Grizzlies in his career, and I think that is one thing to see if he does it here again. Just outrageous numbers.
Is it the Johnny Flynn thing? Like, why is Steph so like he is ridiculous against them?
It has. It's like it feels like them and Portland are the two franchises that he just has perpetually just rained terror on for some reason. But yeah, I mean, the Grizzlies aren't afraid. And the thing is, I mean, again, Desmond Bane playing great last series, shooting the ball really well right now. Dylan Brooks, it feels like, hit the shots he needed to when it matters. And he's a guy that they're going to lean on in the fourth quarter big time. And I think the other thing that's encouraging is that John Morant didn't really play great in a couple of those games. I mean, they were down double digits in 5 of these games, which is insane. That, I mean, again, the comeback, the most infamous, that was just unbelievable. I was actually that was when I was off last week. I was down in Fort Lauderdale, and it went from, oh man, this is the last game on tonight, this kind of stinks, to, yo, should we get them to flip that TV back on, to, oh my God, Memphis is going to do this. They're really going to blow this lead. Like, that's one of those just kind of surreal ones to watch. And I think, again, the energy that Memphis is going to bring, I think Jaren Jackson probably plays better as well than he did last series. He's always going to bring it defensively, but in terms of him shooting the basketball, it was a big series to forget against Minnesota. And in terms of, Golden State, what else is there to say? I think the good thing for them is that they can match up really well. I like Gary Payton II's matchup on John Morant. He may get like 25 minutes a night or something. I think they're going to try to put him there whenever he can, get him to keep up. But again, being fully healthy, the way that they've adjusted now, getting Steph Curry back into the lineup, Jordan Poole coming off the bench, the way he shot the basketball to start, Klay Thompson back into his rhythm, Draymond Green doing all the things that Draymond needs to do for this team. Like, I just think Steve Kerr has a good rotation right now. Again, it's nice when the chemistry doesn't really need to figure itself out. It's only minor things. And I do the way they've kind of turned up the defensive identity as well. It's going to be a good series. Like, I don't get me wrong. I could see this one going 7. I have it going 6. I think Golden State wins in 6, but Memphis is good. They're scrappy. They're going to annoy the hell out of teams at home. But I do think Golden State just, again, this is where the experience matters, I think. And a little bit of a revenge factor as well. I think that Golden State may have some motivation. We talked about some eliminations. Memphis eliminated Golden State in the play-in game last year when Steph was going crazy. I think he may want that back as well. And this is certainly a good chance to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the opposite of you, man. I think it's the Warriors in 5. Like, I watched that Minnesota Memphis series closely, and I was just not impressed. Like, so this season I've turned into Anthony Edwards has turned into one of my favorite players. I thought we were moving away from the 3-level scorers. He is a legit 3-level scorer. Can hit the mid range, and his interviews are fun to watch. Like, we got to get him out of there. And as a bandwagon Kentucky basketball fan,
Wait, but Minnesota has the best season that they've had in years, and you're already trying to get Ant out of there, man.
Yes, because I don't like any of the other players. Pat Bev was annoying, and as a Kentucky bandwagon fan, it hurts me to say this. Oh, man, Karl-Anthony Towns. Jimmy was right about Karl-Anthony Towns. He is so frustrated to watch. Like, he stands at the three-point line. Like, they literally put Dylan Brooks on him, and he did not take advantage of that matchup. You can't do that.
It's crazy with Karl-Anthony Towns because it feels like he leaned into being the villain way more this year. Like, be it the Pat Bev influence, whatever it may be. But now I feel like people are hating on him
about it.
Yeah, the whole league made fun of him about it. So he made fun of him for being soft, and now he starts barking back, and it's like, yo, Cat, maybe you should just go chill out a little bit. Man, oh man. In a way, I do feel bad because it seems like he gets way more than he deserves compared to some other players. I do think I get the frustration. It doesn't feel like, you mentioned with Embiid and Jokic, they just go and get a bucket when they need to. With Karl-Anthony Towns, with how good he is on the offensive end, he should be doing that as well. Like, he's never going to be as defensively good as like even a Gobert or a Bam. Like, they'll always be better defensive centers, but all you got to do is be a plus defender with your offensive ability, and you're going to be in that conversation right there with Embiid and Jokic. Like, he has that potential to be. I mean, for Minnesota, they'll be fine. I mean, again, Ant Edwards breakout. Jaden McDaniels just having an absolutely incredible series. Looks like a big piece of that team's future. Like, I think they're going to be fine. I also think D'Angelo Russell is kind of getting more flack than he needs to. Like, it's concerning for sure that he's not in that closeout game in the last 5 minutes. And he didn't shoot the ball well that series, but I'm also like, yeah, he had one bad series. I'm not ready. I think they need another ball handler for sure, but I'm not just totally ready to pull the rug out on D'Lo yet. But I mean, I agree. That is the concern for Memphis, is where it's like, on one hand, that's great. They came back from all these double-digit, deficits, and they were able to close out these games and play strong in the fourth quarter. I don't think Golden State is going to let them come back from double-digit deficits like that. Like, that's the difference, is Minnesota hasn't been here before. Like, even with Memphis playing in the play-in and getting playoff experience, like, they've had a little bit where it didn't surprise me that they win that series and do well in those moments where, yeah, with Golden State, we know what Golden State is at this point. Like, they've all been here a zillion times. You're not going to be able to do that against Steph Curry. You're not going to be able to do that against Klay Thompson. And even if you get up big on them, they obviously have the firepower to get back in it pretty quickly. I just like Steve Kerr's rotation too right now. Like, I think it's really on to something with Wiggins and with Otto Porter Jr. as well. It just feels like they're in a groove right now. I really do want to see the Phoenix Golden State matchup, not just for like Chris Paul versus Steph Curry again as well. But I do. I think those are the two best teams in the West right now. And then, I mean, whoever comes out of there is – what's up?
No, I said possibly the league. Two best teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like – do you feel like with Phoenix that – and again, I know that they shot the ball really poorly last series, and New Orleans was playing too – great basketball, and I think they deserve a lot of credit. Like, they were never going to be a typical rollover 8 seed. Do you feel like that it got real disrespectful really fast for Phoenix? Like, Phoenix won 64 games. They were by far the best team in the league all year from start to finish. And I saw them as low as like 5 or 6 on some like Vegas betting boards to win the title. Like, I know Book got hurt, but as soon as Book came back for game 6, it's like, yo, if they're healthy, what changed?
Right. It's the Chris Paul effect. I feel at this point people are waiting for Chris Paul to either disappoint or get injured. That's unfortunately been what he's been, this his whole career. Like you said, he went 14 for 14. Like, Chris Paul has teased so many teams. Like, I have a Houston fan who tells me about the times Chris Paul they had a championship. I got a Clippers fan who can tell me about a season where they won. It's just like, unfortunately, it's been bound before, sooner or later, and unfortunately, it's been later. Like, when the team is needed the most, either he just has one of his games where he looks legit like Cliff Paul, or he's gotten injured. So I think it's just like Vegas is like, no, we're not falling for Chris Paul in this nonsense again.
Oh, and that really, it's crazy too, because he has so many of those moments. Like, I even go back to, you go back with the Clippers, that game winner against the Spurs the year after the Spurs won the title in that game 7, going 14 for 14 to close out the Pelicans. Like, that's an all-timer. It does feel like, which is crazy because I don't think anyone thought this, obviously, initially when he went to Phoenix, but I think really post-Houston, because, I mean, when they pushed Golden State and then he just got hurt, it's like, the guy's just stake bitten. Like, that wasn't
Right.
even, you can't even blame a collapse there. Like, he just got hurt. His body failed him after they won that game and were up it and couldn't close out the last 2. This is as good of a chance as he's ever going to get. I mean, obviously he was there last year up 2-0. But that's been the comparison all year, is that everyone's wanted to, is with the 2014 Spurs losing that absolute backbreaker to you guys with the Ray Allen shot, and then losing game 7 in Miami, and then coming back and winning the next year. It still feels like Phoenix has that in them. I get that Golden State is healthy, and I think Golden State hasn't been healthy all year, so I don't want to downplay that and downplay their experience. All these other things that we just talked about, like, that's going to be an incredible series, I think. But I don't want to rule out Phoenix here either. Like, they don't need.
Yeah.
It's pretty telling for me when they say they don't need any motivation. Like, that's the sign of a good locker room. It's like, yo, we lost last year. We're not worried about other teams. We want to get back here. We know what we left on the table. I mean, for the young core, the validation there, the first championship in franchise history motivation, and then obviously for Chris Paul, like, there's just something about that first title. I mean, you know how it felt with the Heat in 06 with Dwayne Wade. For me, it was with football, with the Eagles back in 2017. Like, there's something about the first one that just stays as an all-timer there, or unless it's just been a drought, the way like Milwaukee had, for example, where, you
Right.
got one since Kareem. Obviously, it means the world when Giannis comes out and gets one. But I mean, what's LeBron's greatest achievement? The title in Cleveland. Like, that's the one that put him in the Jordan conversation, I think, for most people. So, it would be, I mean, Chris Paul, I think, again, the legacy discussions are kind of ridiculous with him at this point. But it does shut up any remote doubt if he's able to get to win the title this year. And it feels like a lot of people have just jumped to Golden State already and go, nope, this is
Right.
it. We're back with Steph Curry. And it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, but Phoenix won 64 games. Like, let's
Yeah.
put some respect on it a little bit.
And like you mentioned Aiton. We got to see more from Aiton and Crowder, man. I became a big fan of Jameson Crowder when he played with the Heat. Like you said, his shooting was horrendous in the first series. I expect that to go up, but like, we don't need Jameson. We don't need to see Crowder shooting 18 threes over
Yeah.
2 game stretches anyway. Like, I think Chris Paul. I am rooting for Chris Paul because, like you said, players like Chris Paul have gotten a championship sooner or later. It's like they've gotten their team over the hump, and maybe this is what they need. Maybe they need people to not pay as much attention, and like the Warriors, and maybe he needs to be out of the spotlight to get it.
It does help because in a way, it's like it feels like Phoenix should have a target on their back every single game, and they just don't. Like, they don't as the number 1 team in the NBA this year. Like, I think you're more likely to find people just collectively. I'm talking, NBA Twitter, even analysts at this point, who are higher on Golden State, who are higher on Boston, who are higher on Milwaukee. And again, I'm not downplaying any of those. Like, they all have very real chances to win the title. This does feel like at least the most in a while wide open, where it
Right.
feels like anyone can win the title. Like, you could talk me into 4 or 5 teams probably winning the title right now.
Yeah.
Where in the
that's never
past,
been the case.
no, in the past you've
Not
had
not in a
LeBron,
while
or
anyway.
it's either been LeBron or the Warriors, like that, at least in recency, and then go back before that a couple different ones. But either way, it should be fun, and I'm excited about the second round. Let us know all your thoughts about our picks. Tweet at us at Drive and Dish NBA. And of course, we will be watching the second round here. Hopefully, we see my friend Joel Embiid at some point, but I can't say I'm feeling
He'll
optimistic.
be out there balling. He'll be out there. I expect him to be. I kind of expect him to be out there game 2. I would be shocked if he's not out there by game 3.
It would, if he doesn't need surgery, I think he's back by 3. I think 3 is next Friday as of recording this. Game 1 is Monday. There's no chance he plays in game 1, in my opinion.
Right.
I'd be stunned if he plays 2. I could see it knowing that it's Embiid. Like, look, this is a tough dude. He's already playing through the torn thumb right now. Like, Embiid just, it feels like it's beaten up every playoffs. Like, that's just part of what was cruel about this particular injury. I do think he's back there by 3 or 4. I unfortunately feel like it's going to be too little too late at that point, but we shall see. Either way, going to be a fun one. Thank you everybody for listening to this episode of Drive and Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. Find the podcast anywhere you can stream a podcast. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad, Apple Music, Google Play Store, Stitcher, Spreaker, TuneIn, Spotify. All those places were there. Watch the podcast on YouTube, where you can see Carlton and I going back and forth. And again, big shout out to my man Carlton Cabey for filling in here on the podcast. Follow him on Twitter at Carlton_KB. I know we talked Panthers here a little bit earlier. You got anything else you want to plug last minute? Any other takes that you'd like to get off? We want to talk about Stevie Wonder.
He can see he's watching the playoffs with this. Man, I love Chuck. Hey, I tell you what though, we mentioned the Jazz. That was Donovan Mitchell's last game in the Jazz.
Yeah, I think so too.
It may be Tyler Hero's last game whenever we play. I kind of feel like that swap might happen. Hey,
that's interesting. Okay, I was like, wait,
I'll
why?
never forget being more mad at Kevin McHale for trading Kevin Garnett to his old team in Boston. Hey, D-Wade, man, go ahead and sit down and Mitchell. Go ahead and sit him down.
Sleeper agent Dwayne Wade was activated. It's crazy. Like, I do think, and the wild part about it is I think I'm at the point where I might trade Donovan before I trade Rudy. And I never thought I would say that sentence. But I just watched the Jazz not defend anyone besides Rudy Gobert, and then blame Rudy Gobert somehow as the reason that they weren't successful, after it felt like at times they were freezing him out of the offense and that they didn't play a lick of perimeter defense.
I thought that stat where Donovan Mitchell only passed it to Rudy Gobert 1 or 2 times in like a ridiculous amount. I was like, there's no way. And I watched it. And he literally would do everything but pass it. Like, the reason when they won that game and he got that on the alley-oop dunk, it's because the Mavs didn't expect him to give Rudy Gobert the ball, because why should they? Like, he's never done it.
No, it was crazy. Like, the first game of that series was one of the more jarring things I've ever seen on an NBA court. Like, when it was a situation where, I mean, Rudy was actively posted up against smaller defenders in good position, calling for the ball, where if he catches it, he rolls off and dunks the ball. And they were just like, nah, we're good. Never mind. Don't worry about it. Really, really crazy. I'm with you. I think Donovan Mitchell is gone. I think him being not verbally committing to Utah long-term afterwards, because, I mean, you can only tweak the roster really, because if you're paying Rudy and Donovan, which is fine. Like, if that's what you want to keep doing, I'm not necessarily saying that's the wrong path. You're going to get a lot if you trade Donovan Mitchell. Like, that's the thing, is like, you're going to get a lot. And if you keep Rudy and retool, it may not be that long before you're all that good again. Like, and I'm not trying to downplay Donovan Mitchell. That in a way feels disrespectful, but to me, he has way more value than Rudy if you decide to trade one of them.
Following that bubble season where him and Jamal Murray went off, like, you would have expected Donovan Mitchell to carry, like, with Luka missing 2 games, that should have been enough for Donovan Mitchell to carry the Jazz to the next round. The fact that it wasn't is surprising. Like, he's a little. I think we expected him to be a little bit higher at this point of his career.
I expected the scoring to become a little more efficient. I think that's the biggest thing, is like, he can score, but he takes a lot of shots to do it. You know, when it's on, it's on. That's the beauty of having a gunner. Like, when they get going, look out. But like you said, I think that because when his shot's not falling, he's not a great defender. Like, that's the other thing too. Is he's just got to get a little bit better defensively to be in that, like, you know, best guard conversation essentially. But we shall see. Certainly fun times ahead in Utah.
I got a Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson, D-Wade.
Listen, I mean, and it wouldn't be the worst deal in the world for Utah. I'm just saying, but we'll have a whole summer of that. If that goes down, let it be said that Carlton will be right back on the podcast. Regardless, appreciate you filling in for Justin this week. Justin will be back.
Justin starting on us in Jamaica. What's up with that?
Bro, Justin went to Jamaica, just casually dropped that 2 episodes ago. He's like, oh, yeah, by the way, work's sending me to Jamaica. And it's like, wait, is that normal? Like, the man's been down there for a couple days hanging out. You know, all expensive. If he's not,
he said work. I was like, what the hell did Justin get a new job? The job that I know of is sending him to Jamaica.
Could you imagine if Justin just was on Jamaican radio? That would be the funniest thing in the world. If you had Justin on Jamaican radio, I would pay money to listen to that. Justin, if you hear this episode before you get back, please try to get a demo or something in for us. We need it.
We need it badly.